Hi everyone, so we have been playing Diablo Immortal for around a month now, and I think by now the picture has become a bit more clear about how the game works and also a lot of issues that the game has. I'm not just talking about the number one topic, the pay to win and the monetization, although it does tie into it. I think that in general, this is an MMO and it has some glaring problems when it comes to being able to group up and play together with other people. So what I mean is that you cannot really create any kind of like long-term community and a long-term like bond with other people where you can group up, play together, overcome challenges, do the raids. One pretty good example for this is the LaSalle raid. So everyone has done that at least once, I assume, probably multiple times because of the scoria. And this is the footage from my very first LaSalle kill on second day after the game's release. And this was our warband's, first kill, 8 people from our clan working together to take down this boss. Everyone was really hyped. We were actually one of the first teams on the server to do it. And we actually also managed to get the fastest LaSalle kill later that week for at least the first reset. So we were very happy with that. We had the people that were very engaged, playing a lot, going through the campaign really fast, because that was kind of the requirement to actually do LaSalle. So not many people were that far yet, and we had a chance to do this. But this is literally the only time I've done a warband raid with all 8 of those people. By now, half of them have already quit and joined other warbands. The other half are just way too strong, and the other half is way too weak. And people are not really on the same power level anymore. And it's a pretty weird system. This is actually something that just happened right as I was about to record this video. Here, I just saw someone asking in chat for LaSalle again. I was like, okay, let's just do it real quick. And then I realized it was the wrong difficulty. This was only difficulty 2, not difficulty 3, which, well, I'm used to farming for a few weeks by now. And I decided to decline. And, well, I was basically promptly removed from the party. And funny enough, this was a party of my own clanmates and me being their clan leader. So the problem I believe in this game is that the power level between players is simply way too different. And it's not really possible to kind of create teams that work together in the long term, because everyone is progressing at different pace, despite playing similar amounts of hours and farming at similar efficiency levels. And the main reason why this problem exists is because of the combat rating scaling. So they have implemented this combat rating system in Diablo Immortal, which is designed to kind of keep damage numbers, health numbers in some kind of range that is acceptable, I guess. So you don't eventually have infinite inflation like we, for example, see it in Diablo 3, where billions and trillions of damage are kind of not good enough. And we're talking about quadrillions and quintillions at this point. So, there is a runaway inflation, and that is obviously a problem for these kind of games that have you, grind better gear, higher levels over and over, and you have to progress to the next level in some way. So this combat rating was implemented to prevent this from happening, so that they don't actually have to increase damage values, but instead they have this rating. And you move on to the next difficulty over and over based on the combat rating. So this completely replaces most of the damage scaling. But the problem is that because you get combat rating, for example, from legendary gems that are tied to the monetization system of the game, and there is an extremely high ceiling, as probably most people know, you can actually have completely, wildly different values of combat rating between players, so that you cannot actually group up together. For example, my character reached 1750 combat rating so far as a free-to-play character. I'm Paragon 55. Haven't really grinded that much recently, so I could be a bit stronger, and I don't have any triple stat items. So if I find 3-4 of those, I would be, comfortably approaching 2k, and I would be slowly ready for health 3. But I don't have those items, and someone who maybe selected a little bit and wasn't online every single day to do all their daily caps and weekly caps and all that stuff, will most likely be behind despite being on a similar gear and Paragon level, because, for example, they might have missed some scoria that gives you combat rating. They might not have the same legendary gem levels that I managed to acquire, and they're just gonna be like further behind and even further away from progressing to the next hell difficulty. But on the other hand, some people have been farming hell free for weeks at this point, completely on their own, taking the entire open world content for their own party with no disturbance from anyone else, taking their farming spots. So it has been way more efficient for these people until eventually more and more people creep into the higher levels, and then the cycle repeats on Hell 4 and then Hell 5 and so on. This will keep going forever, basically. A similar problem exists in challenge rifts. So if you look at this, like now I have cleared a solo 53, and this is already like 200 combat rating above my expected limit. So I could push a few levels higher, like 55, maybe 56, 57, I guess, plus 300, plus 350 combat rating or so is probably the expected limit if you play really well and you try for a few hours. But obviously this is nowhere near the top levels of what some people have cleared that have been paying for more character power, especially combat rating. So if you look at those group challenge rift leaderboards, the main expectation would be that there's simply like one guy who's like a bit above combat rating, even a difference of something like 100 to 150 combat rating or so between like the strongest and the weakest player in a party already causes a massive difference of, some person basically doing all the damage and actually being able to survive, versus the other person basically not contributing anything and getting most likely one shot by everything. Like if I want to get in there into like a level 80 challenge rift, or even 70 or even 60, I would get destroyed, even if I tried to do some kind of support setup, for example, not really trying to DPS very much, but just helping the team. I would have absolutely no reason to even step foot in there. This means I effectively cannot really play together with, my friends that are stronger than me, for example. Like there's no way for my character to catch up in a fast enough way. There's also no way that someone who is ready for Hell 3 will step down again to Hell 2 so that they can play with me, because why would they? So they get higher loot on Hell 3, they can pre-farm the items for Paragon 80, they can get a massive power spike once they reach Paragon 80 to equip everything. And yeah, it just doesn't make sense for anyone to go down to the lower level again and play with someone else. Not really saying this to complain that I'm too weak and I feel, left behind or anything like that. I just think that it completely disrupts the social aspects of the game, where, you just cannot really tell necessarily who is how strong and who could I group up with or not, because, for example, the Paragon level is not exactly a good enough indicator. You can kind of see that someone is actually actively playing the game, but this is like about the only information value that this number has, whereas the real character power comes from the combat rating, at least PvE wise. In PvP, there's obviously the other issue of resonance, but this is a separate topic that I've already talked about. But I believe that this whole combat rating system is just something that doesn't make any sense in MMOs. But that's not really the only problem that I have with the game. It's also the social systems that the game has to offer in the form of clans and warbands. So obviously this is supposed to be a social experience, a social game where you group up, you overcome challenges like those raid bosses, like dungeons, and you work together as a team. And obviously MMOs, you want to play for a long time, you want to do your daily and weekly grind, and you also want to get to know the people in your clan, you want to form a social bond beyond just playing together. But the problem that Diablo Immortal also has is this limit of 100 members per clan, which really has you consider who you're inviting, and also people have to get kicked out regularly because every single member is kind of forced to be, very active, contribute daily to the clan's performance, to the clan's progression. We have the Shadow Wars, where you need 91 out of 100 people online at a specific time in the week. And for example, when you're the Immortals and you have people that don't contribute anything, then you are heavily incentivized to straight up just kick them. Because the more inactive people you have that don't contribute anything to your Immortal reign, the more likely it is that you will just get overthrown more quickly, which, funny enough, is actually the correct strategy anyway, I believe right now, because being an Immortal is a lot of headache, a lot of effort for kind of similar to potentially worse rewards than being a Shadow anyway. But that point aside, I think that on both sides, Shadows and Immortals, there is this issue that, you just have to purge people constantly, and you never really have kind of this long-term attachment to anyone. Or if you are like a very casual clan, then maybe you can do that. But since so much revolves around, the clan's performance, the Shadow Wars, this whole, cycle of strife with the back and forth between the Shadows and the Immortals, and obviously people want to try to participate in that because that is literally the entire end game, then this is what you're forced to do. Now in our clan specifically, we haven't really been that strict, so you can see there's still some people that are clearly almost not playing or already quite inactive. Some Paragon 33 guys, obviously, Paragon 6 I saw there. There's a bunch of people that are not exactly high. So our Paragon right now is 56, I believe. So they could have been, not playing for like 2 weeks already or even more. But overall, we also did that at least to some degree because we simply had to. And if I compare this, for example, to World of Warcraft, where you have usually like big raid guilds, and then you have like, the raid roster of the core members that are actually blasting. And then you usually have, friends, wives and husbands and, these kind of like social people around that just fill up the clan or the guild in WoW. And with more people, more people to play, more people to interact with, you build a community and you can stay there for years and years. You can go offline for months and months and no one bats an eye. And I believe that this is actually how an MMO should work. And personally, I don't really see the reason why clans need to be limited to so few members in this game. Like, it has only a maximum of 100 members. And as I mentioned, pretty much all of them count. All of them need to contribute for your clan to be successful. And even if you have, the most active people on the server, it's basically not enough because some of them will be offline some days. Some of them will not be able to make it to the Shadow War when you need 91 people online at the same time. And all of it is simply just requiring way too much of the people playing this game, in my opinion. Now, I think there's also some positives about how Diablo Immortal is handling this whole open world feature. It is, for example, quite easy to recognize people. It is quite easy to group up with people as long as you are looking for like a specific difficulty and you don't really care too much about who exactly you are playing with. So if I just type in chat, +3, Hell 2, Chaos of Echoes, usually I will fill a group really quickly with just random people. But again, these are random people. And not really necessarily the people that, I really wanted to play with, like my friends or something like that. And I think this is definitely a huge problem that the game has. Personally, I think it's a pity how these social systems have actually turned out in Immortal. I think there's a lot of, room for improvement, not just with those, clan size limits, but also how you handle clans. For example, running the Immortals is a big headache. And it's so difficult to, get people to do the stuff that they're supposed to do or that makes the most sense because we have very limited tools in the game and the tools that we have are kind of clunky to actually run the Immortals, for example. On the Shadow side, it's probably a bit easier, but again, you kind of need to get everyone to do their dailies at the very least, to contribute and, show up on the Shadow Wars. So also a bit of a similar problem. I'm not really 100% sure how Blizzard would go about fixing all of these issues, but these are just some points that I had on my mind, some discussions that I had on stream with some people. And it got me thinking a bit about, how the incentives actually work in this game. And I believe they are really like misplaced in some areas. It Probably won't really matter much for me, but this is some points I want to get out there. Let me know what you think. What are your impressions with, especially the social features of the game? How is, maybe your Immortal reign going or something like that? And hope you enjoyed this video. I'll see you guys next time.